All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and discover exactly how a seemingly goofy 1960s sitcom managed to secretly hide profound layers of Cold War politics and existential philosophy. Now, you might think you know the whole story of the SS Minnow and its stranded passengers, but trust me, beneath that slapstick exterior lies a really fascinating history of behind-the-scenes drama and, surprisingly, high-level academic theory.
Like the passenger manifest of the SS Minnow, our itinerary today has 6 distinct stops. The fateful trip begins, behind the theme song, production drama and cancellation, a minimalist existential allegory, exploring the island's themes, and finally, the unending pop culture tour. Okay, let's weigh anchor.
Section 1. The fateful trip begins, a rocky start.
So, to start us off, it's wild to think that the show's initial production actually collided with one of the absolute darkest days in American history. The original pilot was wrapping up filming in Hawaii on November 22, 1963, which of course is the exact day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. The crew literally huddled around a radio between takes just to listen to the news. Because of this massive national tragedy, the Honolulu harbor was completely closed for a day of mourning. In fact, if you look really closely at the opening credits of the first season, right as the minnow leaves the harbor, there's actually a visual reminder forever embedded in that sequence, an American flag flying at half-staff in the background.
Now, beyond the historical tragedy happening around them, the pilot episode itself had some major issues. It tested so poorly with audiences that the creator, Sherwood Schwartz, had to fundamentally reinvent 3 of the 7 stranded castaways before the network would even give him the green light. Originally, the cast included 2 secretaries named Bunny and Ginger, plus a high school teacher. Apparently, test audiences found the teacher's good looks untrustworthy. Crazy, right? And the chemistry of the group just didn't work. So Schwartz completely retooled the dynamic. He brought in the wholesome Kansas farm girl Marianne, transformed Ginger into a glamorous Hollywood movie star, and cast Russell Johnson as the brilliant gadget-building professor.
Section 2. Behind the theme song, musical mutiny.
Get this, before he was scoring massive, iconic blockbusters like Star Wars and Jaws, John Williams actually composed the show's initial theme song, and it was completely different. In the original pilot, it was a calypso tune featuring the show's creator singing under the guise of an impersonator, and the lyrics actually described a 6-hour ride instead of the famous 3-hour tour. The network ultimately wanted a totally different vibe, so composer George Weil was brought in, and he crafted that legendary, catchy sea shanty that is pretty much burned into all of our brains today.
But even that famous sea shanty wasn't safe from behind-the-scenes drama. You probably remember this infamous lyric from the very first season, sung by an Illinois group called the Wellingtons. Well, because of some really strict contractual stipulations negotiated by Tina Louise, who played Ginger, her name had to be billed absolutely last among the stars. As a direct result, the song relegated 2 main characters, the professor and Marianne, to a simple, almost dismissive footnote, and the rest.
Well, that did not sit well with the show's lead. Bob Denver, who of course played Gilligan, completely leveraged his star power to stand up for his castmates. It really proves that the real-life crew was just as fiercely loyal to each other as their on-screen counterparts were. When the studio flat-out refused to pay the money to reshoot the opening sequence to include Russell Johnson and Don Wells, Denver threatened to exercise a very specific clause in his own contract. He essentially said he would move his own top billing to the very end of the credits, which would have totally upended Tina Louise's heavily negotiated spot. Realizing they were cornered, the studio quickly caved. They paid for a new vocal group to re-record the track and permanently changed the lyrics to The Professor and Marianne.
Section 3. Production drama and cancellation. A sudden sinking.
What's genuinely shocking to realize is that the show wasn't canceled because of low ratings. In fact, during its 3rd season, Gilligan's Island was actively winning its time slot against its main competition, NBC's The Monkees. The creator was even given a solid verbal renewal for a 4th season. Some of the cast members were so confident they even bought houses near the studio. But then, backstage network politics took over. The wife of CBS network president William S. Paley was a massive fan of the long-running Western Gunsmoke, which was actually slated to be canceled. Under immense pressure from his wife Babe and a few network affiliates, Paley moved Gunsmoke to an earlier Monday time slot. And just like that, an immensely popular show was quietly axed while the cast was literally away on summer vacation, totally oblivious to the boardroom politics happening back home.
Let's pivot to Section 4, a minimalist existential allegory, the academic lens.
While TV critics of the era routinely dismissed the show as just a vast wasteland of mindless slapstick and falling coconuts, modern author Walter Metz argues it was actually a brilliant minimalist allegory examining human nature. Under this framework, the very fact that the castaways repeatedly, hopelessly failed to escape wasn't just some cheap sitcom trope, it was a highly deliberate existential commentary. The uncharted island essentially functioned as an isolated microcosm of society. It allowed the writers to cleverly critique American social customs, class disparities, and post-war anxieties, all safely hidden under the unassuming cover of goofy physical comedy.
It turns out the show's creator was knowingly borrowing tropes from high literature, cloaking these deep existential themes in a populist American format. Scholar Walter Metz points out some really striking parallels to Shakespeare's The Tempest, with its isolated island setting, and even Hamlet in an episode where the castaways literally perform a musical version of the tragic play. Think about it. The endless, futile wait for a rescue ship completely mirrors the existential dread of waiting for Godot. Meanwhile, Gilligan's pursuit of a seemingly unattainable goal has major shades of Moby Dick. It is, quite literally, high art disguised as lowbrow entertainment.
Which brings us to Section 5, Exploring the Island's Themes, Social Experiments.
So every single week, the island practically serves as a blank canvas for social experiments, testing how money, politics, and power function in a total vacuum. Take the episode The Big Gold Strike, for example. Mr. Howell's immense wealth is completely useless on the island, right? Yet when they discover a gold mine, the entire cast is immediately corrupted by greed. They weigh down their own rescue raft with so much smuggled gold that it literally sinks. Then there's Gilligan versus Gilligan, which perfectly, hilariously, captures 1960s Cold War anxiety by introducing a Soviet spy doppelganger. And in St. Gilligan and the Dragon, the show directly tackled shifting gender politics. The women go on strike, refusing to cook or clean until the men help build them a hut. It was a fascinating mirror reflecting the rapid societal changes happening back on the mainland at that exact time.
Section 6, The Unending Pop Culture Tour, Legacy and Myths.
You know how the media loves a good catfight, right? Well, because of that, there's been a persistent rumor for decades that Tina Louise and Dawn Wells bitterly feuded behind the scenes, basically playing out their on-screen character contrasts in real life. But instead of that bitter rivalry the tabloids love to invent, the two actresses actually shared a really wonderful friendship. It even extended into real-life holiday traditions. Tina Louise, who lived much like a glamorous movie star and didn't really know how to cook, was invited over by Dawn Wells right before Thanksgiving one year. Dawn patiently taught her how to make a potato soufflé, and it was a recipe that Tina Louise cherished so much it became a personal Thanksgiving tradition for the rest of her life.
Which naturally leads us to the ultimate pop culture question. It's the one that has inspired countless essays, commercials, and endless friendly debates for over 60 years. Ginger or Marianne? The glamorous, sophisticated movie star or the wholesome, resourceful girl next door? Ultimately, it's a question that basically asks viewers what they value most.
While the debate is definitely still going strong today, the hard data from the 1960s tells a very definitive story. Bob Denver actually confirmed in interviews that the wholesome farm girl consistently outpolled the glamorous movie star by a massive margin when it came to weekly fan mail. To put that into perspective, Dawn Wells was pulling in anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 letters a single week, while Tina Louise hovered around 1,500 to 2,000. It seems that when push comes to shove and you're marooned on a desert island, audiences overwhelmingly preferred the down-to-earth dependability of Marianne.
And honestly, that is exactly what makes looking back at these classic pieces of media so incredibly rewarding. It's never just about the surface comedy. There is always a deeper layer. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder the next time you find yourself marooned on the couch watching a supposedly mindless comedy. If Gilligan's Island was secretly a rich tapestry of Cold War paranoia and existential dread, what seemingly superficial shows of today are secretly telling the true story of our own era? Thanks for joining me on this 3-hour tour, and keep questioning what you watch.